Once again, we're going back tyranny, slavery, and freedom. Freedom has rights and responsibilities. What is wrong with the filibuster? What has happened to it? And getting the infrastructure and then using the long term levers. So we have, you know, the reason we need the infrastructure, and they're against the Great Society. And then because when you have the Great Society, um, it means that everything, all that's there's a floor to the society, and it's not just people squeezing every dime into their own personal pocket. Before we go on, I want to talk about this story in time about Jaguar. When you read through it, it's like, was it all? Um, as I read through this, what irked me, it was not really stated blatantly, but what was, it needs to be researched, and if it is true, which I'm pretty sure it is, the 45th used these this guy was not self-radicalized personally they had to say what they said, but this is what when as soon as I read it, my take was, and still is, the Taliban sent an attack. They killed our soldiers. We did not retaliate. Taliban went, okay, I guess you're serious. And then they did, and then they decided to participate in the Doha, in the, yeah. And then we then blocked out the government we were supposedly be sitting because helping, and cut the legs off underneath them. If those sources had fought, it would have rallied more forces. If those government forces had fought, yeah, it would have rallied more of the other of of Afghanistan to fight for their country that they've known for the last 20 years. This is all part of this whole thing. You know, when you look at Bannon's thing that countries should be these religious and racial enclaves, which is a bunch of BS. Yes, countries should have borders. I agree with Major Gifford, Gabby Gifford, not Gabby Gifford, Tulsi Gabbard. I disagree that we should use Trump tactics. I think those were too harsh, but one of them was state that they have to be on the Mexican side of the border. Actually, that kind of as annoying as it is, but it's against a law, I guess. But personally, yeah, because what they believe, a lot of these migrants, they just believe that they can just come in and roll up to the border because of the Democrats, and the laws have not changed. The laws, so it's how we don't have to be a jerk about how we enforce the laws, but the laws have not changed. And even though a lot of these migrants are go-getters, at this particular time especially, we can't have them come into the border, coming over. We don't have spare manufacturing and low-wage manufacturing. We don't even have any manufacturing. We've shipped it all away. So we don't have the influx of jobs for people. You might say, well, then they'll create one. Maybe they will. But right now, we got to regain the republic, and it's hard enough as it is. I hate saying it that way, but that's my take on it. It's, you know, I'd rather, those who, there's some like from Guatemala who are truly seeking asylum because they're being attacked by gangs, totally those, and they're trying to do it legally. We should help those people who are doing it legally, expedite it in the legal process. But those who just come through, we got it. We can't do that. Can't let we got to keep that legality of everything, and we just can't have the world just come show up. Even though it's like, yeah, we do take refugees, we do these things, we have open arms. However, it's no, the way they're coming in is they're being bamboozled by these cartels. Well, look at the research. I don't have the data, and I'm going to assume the major does because we know that these cartel members do that to ship drugs and things. So we have to be careful on that while maintaining our humanity. That was the thing about Trump. He didn't do it very humanely. Uh, so now where am I? Okay. So continuing on with there's two things we're going to be working on here. One is, okay, Cinema and Mansion have placed their shit. Cinema says no to new tax hike. That's a bunch of crapola. Biden has proposed a 15% minimum, and I think that's fair. Most Americans think that's fair. So of course the Republicans are going to kill it because they're no longer a party that actually it's all no taxes, no taxes, no taxes. I'm not a fan of paying taxes. You're supposed to, as an American, find multiple ways to legally not pay taxes. I mean, by legally, you say, for instance, you go to work, you drive, you're supposed to get a mileage discount, go after your taxes. There's always the child tax credit. You're supposed to take all of these types of credits and things because those are the ways that regrow the economy. What has been happening over the last since the 1980s is taxes have not forced people and individuals to reinvest in the economy. So I'm a no starter with what they're doing with Cinema's marker because that's nothing. That leaves nothing. It's 15%. I think the top rate's 28%. So what I do say is that it needs to have nice offsets so you can that reinvest. So that has to be very much part of it. A floor with 28 or 30%, but with lots of I say offsets, but the word's eluding me for some reason right now. Where you because it is an offset of taxes, but those offsets are rolling back in, designed to roll back into the real economy, not just in the pockets. So in other words, we make more money. One of Manchin's things is just that he says 3.5 trillion is too much. Okay, so what we're having here is McConnell's going to try to tank. He's trying to just stop the Fed from doing tapering and getting the borrowing cost down to 1%. That's so good by forcing a default on the debt ceiling, so that way it's higher than 1%. That would then drive down the size of the package because we were willing to go. We're so 3.5 at 1%, and the Fed says they were willing to work to get that down there. But super big money wants all the money, Fed money, pumped into the stock market and keep Main Street running and hoping to get a scrap or two. It's Main Street's money. Obviously, the amount of taxes that are paid in, and then we're creating this, and then we're just handing it to the stock market is a bunch of BS. People aren't paying taxes, so that they keep running and their lives don't get any better. That's that's the reset. So one of the things I was willing to do on the capital gains, you have short-term capital gains. Well, you use the short-term markets to create a lot of capital. Well, I didn't do it today, but because I got to keep having to deal with this, to create capital. Once you have the short-term markets creating capital, you should be able to fairly easily say, okay, we're going to designate, instead of paying 40%, we're going to take X amount of dollars that would, or above what would be the next, and we take that and we say, okay, to lower our tax burden, we're going to take this and we're going to do three tiers of quote long-term capital gains. Now, the reason I say three tiers because the first tier would be 1 year plus 1 day, second tier would be 2 years plus 1 day, and the third would be 5 years plus 1 day, and each one progressively lower taxes to where the 5 year is you just pay the minimum of 15% on your taxes. And knowing I'm saying 15%, knowing the Republicans are going to try to argue that down later on or chip away at it. So that's why you don't want it to go below 15%. So that's fair. Most people would think that's fair. Yeah, you have you create liquid capital in the stock market and then you put it into long-term capital back into your company or back into other companies. Oh, another thing is no more than 25% of 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 revenues can be used to do buybacks because that's the other thing. That's how they've been keeping screwing up the markets. So the whole idea is to force capital back into the marketplace. And that would be, so, because we know that you have your slight inflation, here's the 10%, and then you have a little 5% that they probably will skim or some five way. You know, assume you're just going to be an 8% spread in revenues between on the lower 15%. Now, this is the hardest one because this involves several people. This involves this is a lot because you have Miss Kennedy still over here, and who is more than likely does in her zeal is about to create an international row. She has this. She's Why is she protecting or dealing with this? Trying to have the control over this cartel member, which means that she has the direct control. She's trying to be the intermediary to a cartel member having a a direct line to the vice president and the president. So she's using that as control power situations. However, also probably I have a pretty good feeling she's either also reached out to Camilla, to the Prince of Wales' wife, and Kate Middleton, which now would be a head of state, which means she's interjecting herself into a as the statesperson of the United States, because when you deal with the family of England, it is a state situation, especially considering that the normal reaction would be to come on to an attack me as well. Now we also have the Admiral Crystal in the military. The SEALs, there's two types. There's two, well, at least back in the day, there's two competing things. They're the factions: the Marchenko faction and the what we used to call the Fleeter faction. And most people here, especially Marchenko, yes, yeah, SEAL team, blah blah blah, whatever. Marchenko, when I was working at DevGro, when I was at DevGro, there was this older gentleman, African American, and he'd been there for eons, it seems. So, and actually, he was pretty much one of the oldest persons there as far as how long he'd been in the command. He was a civilian, and I had gone to him towards the end. It was like when I was doing the EO, I'm like, "Am I doing this right? Am I doing right by African America?" And I make sure he got his blessing. But one of the things he told me is that after they dissolved left the command, but they left the remnants of the of SEAL Team Six. They dissolved it and they recreated this research group, and but they still maintained a lot of the psychology and of the type of people, I guess, the type of spirit. That's the word I'm thinking about. Of what was, even though of what was left of Marchenko's command, because a lot of those guys went and were the ones who started it. I guess started Damnek after the command was dissolved. And he said something. He said that Marchenko was sent to fail. And I actually said, I said, just because I'm doing all the reading, making sure I have my stuff together, so when I'm putting things together, that's flowing correctly. And I said, yeah, it looks like Marchenko was sent to fail, knowing the culture of the Navy. And he said, yeah, that's what Marchenko said. He had that conversation with him, and he explained to me a lot of things that Marchenko had said that I was saying, and I didn't realize that these are things. Then he says, yeah, everything you said, Marchenko has said to him in conversation. McChrystal has made his name on quote standing up to Marchenko. He's basically a fleeter, and all of his systems. The reason I had to deal with the person I had to deal with, who was the N6, who was also he basically they I did not in the EO I stated that they were trying to change the command from a command of that gets things done to a command that, as I termed, fleeterism, which was stated within the individual would say doesn't have to be good, has to look good, and we were completely the exact opposite. 180 about looking good. Let me tell you, there's yeah, and I did the EO because if it looks good, people are going to die and the mission will not be completed. And I was determined to stop that, and I destroyed my career to do that. If you are, I don't know who's listening to this, but if you were one of those persons who were there in Damnik during the time I was there, the N6, G-Shock, and the captain that G-Shock was working with, they were all McChrystals. He did that on purpose. He put those personalities into the command on purpose. It's the reason I said when I did finish the EO, I sent it back, and I sent it to the people that I sent it to, so that you would know that I was always loyal to the command and to the idea of the command. When I saw originally that Admiral Losi, who was Captain Losi, which was the second captain that I was under, at first I was like, okay, I screwed up. I must have done something because there's no way they're gonna ever. He didn't. He had more time in his career, but what it ended up being is he's that one SEAL that Drumpf pardoned. That's a fleeter SEAL. He and he can't seem to understand why he never made it to Damnik. And the reason this is important is because all the same tactics and strategies that are being played on me right now, I saw when I was at Damnik. Same personalities, same everything. Now, what this goes on to is the Vice President's Chief of Staff. So Kathleen Kennedy is trying to add to her stable because the cartel member's girlfriend is Caucasoid, so she would have the look. I got the Caucasoid, and I got a biracial couple, blah blah blah. But in her stable. She wants the brand. This person to steal this brand. This dude sent him over there to kill him. Only the reason he didn't get killed is because I said so. I caught it, and he's still under threat. Miss Kennedy is not caring about this country. She's more worried about herself. I am, I'm pretty sure the admiral is doing the same thing because he was the one who changed information saying I had said something else. I don't know what he said, but what I was supposed to have said, but pretty much he was supposed to be on his best behavior, and he is not. He's been trying to sabotage everything. And then this gets to the vice president's chief of staff. Now, I have not done any research. I have not looked at it. I can only see the memes. And one of the things that happened is the president's lost 20% approval rating with the younger generation. But when I'm listening to the videos and all this, it's that particular meme. It was a simple meme. I'm like, yep, it's that lower 20% of the African American population that basically scared of their own shadow. And that was done to them. This is something that's been done to African Americans purposely via culture over years and generations. Usually, say for instance, say, okay, let's say this is the plantation owners, all right, and let's say okay, okay, and so that's okay. You have the head of the household, the man, and then the female. Then you would have slave, masculine slave, your buck. Then you have the feminine slave, and then children, and then these two, like you have a whoops, then you would have a quote redneck. So between the two, let's duplicate that, and so here's your redneck overseer because he's outside. So I'm just a poor redneck. That's where that comes from. Well, dude would go. Let's go textile. Anyways, what shape is I'm looking for? So this was known, and so what I'm saying is not the head of the guy would then bang his slaves or send her out to breeding farms. Usually, he would bang the slaves. I shouldn't say it that way. Have sex with the female slaves, and they would use that, and she would go like, okay, whatever, because if she got pregnant, it was then adding more to the slave to the amount of slaves they had. I'm saying this, and it's very harsh and cold, and I hate having to do it this way. And if I could say it's softer, but there's really no way of saying it that way. So, because it's power. So the slave master would have sex with the female slaves, so that way they would have more slaves to trade or to keep to on the plantation. Then the female slave owner would attack the female. The female would then attack the male. This is the behaviors of the African American community. And it didn't used to be this, it's always been there, but especially after the 1960s where the destruction of the family was done on purpose with these crime bills, it removed the masculine from the society normally have tempered those fears. The reason this is so important is that's the emotion set of the African American community that Hollywood portrays. And this can be shown in the recent Saturday Night Live. Okay, you have Kim Kardashian, and then the next week it's the black guy, African American guy. That's how Kim Kardashian keeps playing African American. She's basically implicitly saying, I will vet what's good and bad in African American. I don't. The other thing is, like, for instance, and then it's called what it calls a dialectic. Seth speak in dialectics. People who are externalized, they speak in a dialectic. Everything is a dialectic, and they're always triangulating because they don't know where they are without those two poles of the dialectic. If you know what a dialectic is, look it up. Hegel, it's philosophy, it's thesis, antithesis, synthesis. And so, but they do this externally to people, emotionally. So African Americans only have one emotion, technically. That's why, or they need that's what. So in the thing, you look at the Kardashian thing, this guy, blonde hair, red glasses, I guess, but it's the combination that makes it. If they had said, okay, Kardashian first, and then maybe they weren't so connected on purpose, but they were connected on purpose because it's as you go through the linear system, it's Kim Kardashian association. Oh, she's with the black guys. Get it? We can look at what Miss Kennedy was doing. Every time I would say something, she would then get Lil Nas X to say something. So he was saying, here's this masculine guy, he's really only, but it may create an association with that he's gay, when I'm extremely heterosexual, and that the type A, here's your king, you're only nothing more than a bunch of what is it? Not thieves, convicts. And these are your kings, so this is the way you're supposed to act, and this is how we're going to portray you. That's what Miss Kennedy is doing to you, and then you're going to start to act like that, and ooh, even if it's quote a white girl or interracial, it's still see they're nothing more than criminals. Your king is a criminal. That's what she's doing. Now, how does this work to the chief of staff for the vice president? The vice president's chief of staff is a certain energetic meme, so to speak, an energy set. This is so weird how to explain it. But after I said what I had to say, then all of a sudden the girl, the red pillars, that's the 20%ers, that 20% of the African American population that's really just scared, the youth, and instead of commenting, that's her. And she knows those are the ones that, girl, I pretty much would almost guarantee the vice president's chief of staff is that type of emotive states, judging by how things have changed. Personally, the chief of staff needs to be removed because she put herself over the vice president, herself over the president, herself over her community, herself over the country, and herself over the world. I know, Madam Vice President, you probably received a partial read-in. She will never get that read-in. She has no clue of what my true capabilities are, just as you didn't, or understand what it takes to get even accepted into what I used to do. To her, it's just who's this dude or whatever. Well, before she before finding out all this other stuff about me, but two is just like, and that's the thing. The African American woman has been trained to attack the African American male through that system, and it's still within the culture. And then it's being trained to grow up, which destroys the families, which makes it easier pickings. But it also lowers our ability to create more revenues and to create more jobs and to create more. And we turn ourselves into a third world country out of fear. And that's the reason you would lose the female vote, a Caucasian female vote that aren't bigoted or brainwashed, because they know and they view African American women in general to be very, very aggressive, hard to speak to, prickly. So you might want to talk to Miss Abrams and look through people within your that she had not hired or that you trust that aren't trying to manipulate you via trust. Because I know you're not. I know you're going to keep her as your kumbala, and you do. You're going to lose. And it's not from me saying this. It is just by the fact people are gonna look and go, here's this guy who's put his life on the line to help out the African American community, to use his networks, and you shit on him, and then you elevate this this drug dealer. They're not going to say anything politely, but privately they're going to, the non-bigoted ones, the bigoted ones are going to be like, yo, go for it. But the non-bigoted ones are going to be like, we can't trust you because you couldn't see that. You didn't know until you got your rate in just how driven I am. She has no clue. And she's running you. And she's screwing up the president's agenda. Because that's her emotive energy that's rolling through the 20-year-olds when they're all pissed off. Oh, Biden said I need you to get Reuven. Well, yeah, they voted him in. This is the time to get the job done. We need them to get moving to say, hey, we got this. George Floyd died in the streets for 2 months. Here, impeach a president, grab the frickin' brass ring that your ancestors have fought 400 years for. Crickets. The European Americans that want to support African Americans, if you don't step up, oh well. That's all I can say. The President of the United States, the former President of the United States, attempted a coup and destroyed the constitutional order of the United States, and it needs to be fixed. And in order to fix it, they were willing to spend the money. She, instead of saying, putting the country first, she went to her networks and tried to show, look at my power. The whole thing was to say that this Mr. Briscoe could be me. As you now know, he doesn't have the networks, doesn't have the brains. He couldn't have pulled this off. even getting this close. Then the situation is to fit within the normal externalized self. Well, you do all the work, we'll take all the goodies. Oh hell no. You think I'm a pain in the ass. Once I die, you're gonna have to deal with my sister. Good luck with that. And I will guarantee you, I don't have to say anymore. But just good luck with that. So you have to impeach. Oh, and there's another thing. Right now, I'll write that one later. That's something that's going to be done differently. You know, you got to stop McConnell. He just seeks power, but he's trying to seek power in the wrong spot. He's supposed to seek power from the president, and he didn't seek power from the last president, and he gave away his power because he allowed the president to get away with breaching Congress and showing contempt to the Constitution and contempt to Congress. Therefore, Mitch McConnell, by the Constitution, is in contempt of Congress and in contempt of the Constitution. In other words, he believes he is bigger than both Congress and the Constitution. Republicans shove stuff down your throat all the time. And as a person who's more business oriented, even though in my situation, I'm definitely more freedom oriented. I don't like people in my business. I'm not a city person. I just want to be left the frack alone. But as a patriot, they have kept the right so afraid, and the white nationalists have used that to swing the pendulum, and they have stated it in their writings. They're always talking about the Overton window. They know exactly what they're doing. And you know that I know it was a coup. They know it was a coup. And if you do not hold the former president, and disallow him, then the republic will have fallen. If you do not hold the former president to an account, the republic is all but dead. You, as a jurist, should know this, Madam Vice President. I learned it. I figured it out reading. Dr. Willard forced us to read multiple Supreme Court cases, and then I learned to use that for myself to learn how to read Supreme Court cases and then work my way through the law. And I'm not because I needed to, because entertainment business is mostly dealing with monetizing ideas. So I need to know the laws of what of how do we monetize and protect ideas. So my bachelor's is in internet marketing, but then all this other stuff I do with artificial intelligence that I've been doing since I was a kid, programming and stuff. To and then hardware, software, of electronics. So that's how I connect everything. But then the master's is basically how do I protect my ideas? And that's what makes me dangerous, and that's why they're attacking so hard. Mitch McConnell is about to throw the vets under the bus to get to me. And you might say, well, that's big and full of yourself. And normally I would say, yeah, you're right. But not this time. He's going to screw over the vets. So you allow him to screw over the vets, you've lost another constituency. stop him and get this through. You say you want to change the society from the inside. Here's your chance. It's not going to be easy. Madam Vice President, this is the Game of Thrones. And she's not cut out for it. She couldn't put herself, she could not put the you, the president, and the country above her own petties. Because if you think Stacey Abrams or the Reverend Al think, oh, this is a great dude, he's the no, like, they probably think the exact same thing, but they understood that I am not their enemy, that I am killing. I quite literally probably will be dead, trying to help and get these things through. Not just because what I said in order to get for Star Wars, which I do, the Star Wars fans, keeping my word there, but because it's the right thing to do. And two, the country, I swore an oath to protect and defend the Constitution. And so did you.